Hey guys, my name is Varun Maya, and the last week has been absolutely phenomenal for me. Some of you have been reading the book. The reviews have been insane. I'm glad that I could write something, Abhinav and I could write something that made sense to you guys, that's taking you through the entire journey of being a freelancer. But one of the questions that we've been getting a lot is, Varun, there's a chapter in the book where you mention personal websites, where you talk about how do I build a personal website, how do I build a personal brand presence that clients can look forward to, that clients can come into, that I can advertise. In the book, we've spoken about a few tools you can use, a few strategies you can use to build your own brand presence and to build your own website. But I thought it was easier for me to just make a tutorial where I teach you how to build a personal website from scratch. Now, I've been building websites since I was 12 years old, and there's a lot to it. It's not extremely complex, but at the same time, there's a lot of nuances that you need to be aware of. And over the last maybe 6 months, I've been using a state-of-the-art tool that has taken the time I take to build a website from maybe 2 weeks or 3 weeks to a couple of hours. Yes, that's right. That's 2 weeks down to a couple of hours, and that tool is called Webflow, and it's really revolutionized the way Avalon as a whole, as a company, approaches building websites and landing pages. And I think, and it would hurt me to see some of you out there not being able to use the tool or not even knowing something like this exists. So what I did over the weekend was I reached out to Adam and Vlad from Webflow, and I told them, look, I'm planning to do this video on how to build a personal website. Do you think it makes sense for your audience? And they were ecstatic. They said, you know what, we should do this. We'll help you in whatever way we can. We'll help you with the distribution. We'll help you with the marketing. So that's beautiful. And I think, and I'm going to keep this video short, right? I know attention spans are shortening as we speak. It's just a function of the way the world is working. But this video is going to be extremely short. I'm going to teach you how to make a website, how to deploy that website, and you'll learn a lot of the basics of HTML and CSS along the way. To go through this tutorial, you need no prerequisites. You don't need to know how to code. You don't need to know anything. As long as you can use a computer, you can use the internet, you can build a personal website. Over to the tutorial. Alright guys, so this is Webflow's homepage. I've already paid for a subscription, so I can just head over to the dashboard. We're just going to go head over to the dashboard and create a new website. And I'm going to be clicking on a new project, and I'm going to make sure I click a blank canvas. Let's just call this portfolio. Awesome. Now, a few basics before we head to the meat of things, and this has to do more with HTML and CSS rather than Webflow itself. Now, the way HTML and CSS work is they have a very symbiotic relationship. HTML defines how your website should be structured, and CSS defines how that structure should be styled or designed, right? So we're going to use HTML to make boxes, and we're going to use CSS to make those boxes pretty. Now, this is Webflow's interface. This is Webflow's panel. Now I'm just going to head over to the left side for a bit. Two things we're going to be using a lot. The first one is the add elements section. So we can add cool elements. Maybe it's an image, a video, some sections, some columns, or it could be pages. For this tutorial, we're just going to have one page. We're going to call it the home page. But we're going to use this a lot, right? And on the right side, we've got styles. So remember I told you how CSS is used to style those boxes we make? Well, if the elements on the left here are boxes, then CSS on the right here, they're how you style those boxes. They're how you make the boxes pretty. There's also a couple of other things we're going to be using. We're going to be looking at the navigation structure here. Right now we have just a body. We're going to add things inside the body. We're going to ignore interactions for now. Cool. So first thing you need to know is that every person who views your website will view it on a different device. Some people might use a desktop, some people might use a phone, some people might use a tablet. So what we want to do is we want to make sure our design adapts or becomes responsive to each user's viewport, right, or the size of their screen. So what geniuses across the world have done is split a browser's width, regardless of how big the browser is, into 12 sections. Right? Now we are going to call these sections the grid. So every time we create a box, we're going to divide it into 12 parts. And every time we create a box inside another box, that sub box is going to have 12 parts again. You'll see what I'm talking about very shortly. All right. So let's begin with creating some boxes, right? Like I said, we're going to make those boxes first, and then we're going to style those boxes. We're going to make an incredibly simple website. We're going to have
a hero section, which is basically a main section. We're going to have some content in the middle, a portfolio section third, and then we're going to have a footer. So 4 sections in total, right? So we'll go to the navigation system. This is the navigation system, and we're going to go here and click on section, right? So we have this section here, and we want this section to be called hero, right? So, which is basically your main section. Then we're going to click on body again, and then we're going to create another section. The reason I clicked on body was that whenever you create an element in Webflow, it always comes as a sub-unit of whatever element you currently clicked on. So whenever I click on body and I create a section, it will come under body, right? So I'm going to rename this section, say, content. I'm then going to create another section. See, this is the issue. You need to click on body first and then create a section. And I'm going to call this portfolio, right? And then I'm going to click on section again. I'm going to call this footer. So cool. So we have 4 sections. I think I'll just rename hero. It's just not capitalize all of it. Cool. So these are the 4 sections. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to start styling these sections, right? I'm going to click on hero first. And instead of me editing the hero section entirely, I'm going to create something called a container inside this section. Now, remember that grid I was talking about? When you use the container element, which is this element, it actually makes sure that it leaves some margins on the right and left. These margins are automatically calculated depending on the browser that a person is using. So, and you can see this in Webflow, right? For example, if I click on tablets, you'll see the margins are lesser. If I click on a phone view, you'll see that there are practically no margins, right? So, and the bigger the view gets, the bigger the margins get. So we're going to use the container. It automatically guesses how much space to leave on the left and right, which is why, you don't see websites with content all the way from the left to the right. That's very difficult to read. And we're going to keep the focus in one section, right? So I've created a container here, and I'm going to go ahead and create a container in absolutely every section. I'm going to click on the section, click on the container, click on the section, add a container. So we've got 4 sections here. And we've got 4 containers. So, right, let's begin. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click this first, and I'm going to give it a background image, right? And remember, I'm doing this on the section, not on the container, right? I'm just going to click on add a background image, and I get to choose an image. I'm going to upload an image. I'm going to just go to my downloads folder. I'm going to select this thing called the background image, right? Cool. So we've got a nice background image here, but as you can see, it isn't very big, right? We want this to be a little bigger. Now, in reality, this actually won't show up. If I publish the website and look at it, this image is not even going to show up. The reason is because every box you create in HTML needs a height and a width. So that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to say width of 100%, so it's going to stretch out to the maximum viewport size. I'm going to say a height of maybe 400 pixels. Now all heights and widths are calculated either in percentages or pixels, right? So here's how this looks. Now, you might ask me, why didn't I put this background image in the container? Now remember, we put in the container so that it would contain our content, right? Which is, it could be images, it could be text, but not the background image. The background image should usually make it to the section itself, to the hero section itself. Cool. So now that we're done with this, we're going to go back into the container. We want to put in some content here, right? What we're going to do right now is we're going to click on columns. Now we want to have an image on the left and we want to have some text on the right, right? Now, how do we do that? We use something called columns. Remember how I mentioned that every box has 12 sections? Now, when you use the columns feature, it creates 2 different boxes, each of 6 sections, right, that fit into your parent 12 section column, right? And each of these boxes has 12 sections in itself. So if I press this settings button, you can actually make different types of boxes, right? And as you can see, if I put 3 sections, that's 4, 4, and 4. What does that add up to? 4 plus 4 plus 4 is 12, right? And you can make any types of sections as long as they add up to 12. Right, but for now we're going to use a 2-section column because that's all we need. On the left side of the section, I'm just going to go ahead and add an image. let's see. Right, I found an image of me on a stick. Don't ask me why I made this image or why it's even on my desktop, but it's there, so we're going to use it. Now, as you can see, this image is massive. We're going to resize this image. So I'm going to double click this, and I'm going to set a width of 250 pixels, or maybe even lesser, 200 pixels, right? Now, you might ask me, right, when we created this section, I used this setting here to set an image, right? And when I created this image, I used a totally different method of adding images, which is media. So what's the difference? The difference is that you can, when you style a box using CSS, you can either give it a background image from the CSS side, or if you want an image in the foreground, I recommend using elements, right? So now that we have this, I want this to be bang in the center of this kind of box. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the image, I'm going to go to CSS here, and I'm going to click this center element, right? And that centers the element in the middle of whatever box is necessary. It's this element right here, center element, right? And that looks good. So we've now got some semblance of me on a stick in the middle of our website. And on the right side, I'm going to go add some text. So before I add the text, I'm going to add a heading first, right? I've added a heading here. I'm going to say, hi, my name is, awesome. And then I'm going to click on add element, and I'm going to add a paragraph. I'm going to say, I'm just going to say, welcome to my website. I'm just going to leave some of this text here. In the next video, I'm going to probably teach you how to do some messaging. So you know, people who look at your website are more interested in whatever value proposition you're selling them. And I'm going to choose a font for this, right? I don't want Arial. It's the most boring font out there. I'm just going to use EXO. And I'm going to change this to maybe, I don't know, Open Sans. Right, so one of the annoying things about what we have here is that if you look at it carefully, you'll see that my head is sticking to the ceiling. So what I want is this entire thing to be, I want a little bit of space on top, right? So one of the ways to do that is to click on the hero section and then add some padding, right? So this is padding. Now, there's a very big difference between padding and margin. I'll just show you what it is. So this internal thing that you see here is padding, and what you see externally is margin. So this is what will happen if I add some margins. So margins are basically a way to push the element relative to other elements, and padding allows you to push elements inside a particular element. And because we've clicked on the hero section here, I'm able to add as much padding as I want to, so that elements internally can be pushed around. And that's it. I mean, we've got a fairly good header section here. Now, you typically want a call to action. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this, I'm going to add a button, and I'm going to say, contact me, right? And the cool thing about adding links on Webflow is you can just click on element settings, and you can say, you know, maybe you have a Google form. So Google form, I don't know, I think it's google.com/form/ whatever form you have. And you wanted to open a new tab because you don't want to, you know, make users leave your website directly without reading the rest of what you have to say. And I don't like this particular blue, so I'm going to change it to maybe, I don't know, did I just make it a worse blue? Cool, so we'll use this color. Cool, so we've got this going for us. Now what we're going to do is we're going to build out the other sections. And unlike this section, we're not going to add backgrounds for these sections. So one of the things about how these columns work, we have these two columns here, is that they make use of something called a float, right? And we don't want to particularly have these floats affecting what's in the next section. So, and you don't need to know what floats are right now. We'll probably dive deep into that a little later. But it's how columns work, right? It's how columns know that they have to be either on the left or on the right. But whenever you use a float, make sure that you go to the next section and click on this, clear both sections. So this kind of leaves space between whatever we last put in, and make sure there's enough space left so that you don't screw up the columns here. So I'm going to go back into this container, which is in the content section, and I'm going to create columns. And in this column, I'm going to add a video, right? And let's see, I'm going to go to YouTube. I'm going to look for, I don't know, let's take this video. Right, so I'm just going to add some random video here. Don't ask me why I added this video. But what you should do is add a video of yourself talking to the camera about your value proposition and what you can offer companies or what you can potentially do for your clients. And if you're looking for a job, you might want to talk about the skills you have in video format. And of course, this has to be supported by text. So I'm going to add a heading. I'm going to add a paragraph. Now, we want all the headings and the paragraphs to look very similar. The only problem is this heading here has the EXO font, whereas this heading here does not. Now, this can be solved instead of you manually putting these settings again and again for every heading out there. It makes a lot of sense for you to copy the styles of this and put it into this. And that's where CSS comes in. So what we'll do is we will give, we've already given this heading a name. It's called heading. So you click on this and you type the exact same name, heading. And as you can see, all the properties of this have been copied to this. So you can have classes, and each of these classes, when applied, you just have to type in the name in the selector, will give it the same styles as the previous class, or rather something else of the same class. So we know that this has a styling called paragraph. So we'll click on this and we'll type paragraph. Now you can type anything, right? You can even call it paragraph 5, and you could maybe give this, you know, maybe EXO styling, and you can go here and remove this and say paragraph 5, and this will copy the same style. So it works both ways. Now I don't particularly like this font, but it's a tutorial, so let's just go ahead with it. Cool. So now that we're done with this, we will say, you know, here are my skills. And I'm just going to leave this here, right? Again, we'll do messaging. We'll dive in depth into messaging in the next video. Then what I want is I want to make sure there's some padding to this. So I'm going to add some padding so that it doesn't disrupt later sections. I'm just going to add some more padding. 67 looks like the magic number. Okay, cool. So here's what we have. And in this container, we were going to call this, I mean, this is the portfolio section. You want to make sure you have as many links to your portfolio as possible. So you click here, you click on columns, and I'm going to create, let's say we have 4 pieces of content we want to show off. I click on 4 pieces, four parts of the grid. Cool. So now we've created 4 columns. We're going to populate these columns with, you know, with our portfolio, right? These might be things we've made, places we've been covered in. It doesn't matter. These are links. Now, obviously, these links are going to have images, and unlike all the other images on our website, the only other one actually, we are going to have a link on the image. To do that, we need to create something called a link block, right? So we're just going to say, for now, we'll leave this to Google, open a new tab. Now, one of the things about a link block versus having just a link is a link block allows you to embed an image inside of it. As usual, we are going to center this link block, or rather give it centering, and we are going to add an image into this. And I'm just going to choose some random image. Let's see. Here's an image of us being covered on Entrepreneur Mag, Entrepreneur India. So I've just copied this image, and I'm going to make sure, and it's already here, but I'm going to make sure that the image is inside the link block. So whenever somebody clicks on this, it's going to go to google.com. And I'm also going to center the image, right? Now I'm going to click on this link block. I'm going to press Control-C, which is for copy, and I'm going to paste it in all the other columns. Now you could have, you know, different images, different links. Make sure your portfolio conveys exactly what you're good at to the potential client or the potential customer, right? Finally, as with every other kind of section we've done this with, we can add some padding. Now, I could have made a class for all the sections that adds padding, but I was just a little too lazy this time. You should be using classes. And finally, on the footer section, I'm going to add maybe some color. Maybe I'll add black color. All right, so I'm gonna add some padding to this section so that we can go down so you can see a little more. And inside this container, of course, I'm gonna add in some text. So add a paragraph, and I'm gonna say copyright me 2018. Contact me here, right? And again, let's add some more padding so you can see that a little clearer. Okay, and I make this white colored. I changed the font to Exo, and what I can do is I can actually put in a link, and I can make this link go wherever I want to, google.forms or whatever, right? And I can open this in a new tab. Now, the difference between this and a link block is that a link block has an image embedded inside it. This doesn't, right? And the default styling for regular link is a dirty version of blue, so I'm just going to make it white again, right? And this is clickable, and that's it. I mean, this is all it takes to make your own personal website. And the cool part about making a responsive website based on the grid is that it easily scales to different resolutions. This is how it looks on a tablet. This is how it looks on mobile phones. And this is how it looks on really small mobile phones. If you want some of your styling to be different, maybe you want this to be aligned to the center on phones, you can just click on the phone section and click on the center button, right? Or the align center button. And one of the cool parts about this is that this does not affect styling for larger sections. So whenever you make a change on Webflow, it affects all the sections below it, or rather all the responsive sizes below it. But when you change the responsive sizing or change a particular styling in a responsive view, it doesn't affect resolutions bigger than it, right? And you'll get the hang of this as and when you do it. So that's it. I mean, now you can actually click on the publish button. You can publish to a particular selected domain. Let's just do that, and you can open it in a new tab. So tomorrow you can just buy a domain on GoDaddy or Namecheap and connect it to this. There's a very simple tutorial on it. You can find it on Webflow's official resource, and that's it. This is your website.